The room smelled of antiseptic and power, the two things Ellie Wilson had mastered well. St. Adrian's VIP suite was built like a fortress, reserved only for the ultra-rich who wanted to suffer in silence. Henry Taylor was no exception. Monitors beeped softly around him, as if the machines themselves were holding their breath for him. Ellie stepped in wearing a seductive black dress. She didn't look like the geeky girl Henry used to mock in school. No extra fats, no braces, no acne, no clunky glasses. Just velvet skin, blood-red lips, and curves wrapped in designer silk. She walked over to the bed and leaned in slowly, her scent intoxicating, part revenge, part luxury. "Hi, Henry," she whispered, voice as soft as a lover's kiss. Or should I say, honey? Her perfectly manicured finger traced his cheekbone, dangerously slow. "I bet you never thought the girl you used to bully would be here beside you and act as your lawfully wedded wife, right? Look at you now. Rich. Famous. But utterly helpless." She leaned in closer, her lips just inches from his ear. "You would not blame me if I took all your money, right? Consider it as your compensation for always bullying me from elementary to high school," she whispered sweetly, like she was seducing him into the afterlife. "Now, be a good boy. Die and let me take all your assets. I promise I'll hold a nice funeral for you." She chuckled, low and sultry, and turned toward the door, just in time to meet Ethan Smith, Henry's trusted lawyer and advisor. "Mrs. Taylor," he said stiffly, eyeing her like a rattlesnake in silk. "I wasn't aware Henry had a wife." "Exactly why it worked," she said with a smirk. "We liked our privacy." She handed him a thick folder, filled with forged documents and beautifully constructed lies. Ethan flipped through it, poker-faced, while she moved back to Henry's bedside, eyes gleaming. "Henry and I were always discreet. Passion like ours didn't need the spotlight." And just as she reached out again to brush Henry's hair from his forehead, his eyes slowly opened. Her fingers froze in midair, a breath caught in her throat. Their eyes locked, his gaze confused, hers tight with panic. For a single moment, time stood still. The man was looking at her intensely. "Oh, shit," she secretly cursed inside her head. Beep, beep, beep. The sound was sharper now. Ellie couldn't look away from his eyes. Henry was no longer the silent puppet she planned to steal from. He was awake and staring straight at her. Behind her, Ethan's voice snapped through the tension. "Doctor," he barked, rushing to the hallway. "We need a doctor in here. Henry Taylor just regained consciousness." Ellie's heart thundered in her chest. This isn't happening. She calculated escape routes. She could disappear before they even got a blood pressure reading. Black Hole, her secret agency, could bury her identity within the hour and let Henry and Ethan be confused. Maybe they'd think it's a stupid prank and forget everything. But then Henry asked, "Who are you?" His voice was raw and fragile, but the words cut deep. Not with accusation, just pure, blank confusion. Ellie blinked. A part of her almost hoped he remembered. That he'd rise from the bed screaming her name, recognizing the face of the girl he used to torment. That he'd beg for forgiveness before she ripped everything away. But he didn't. He looked at her like he'd never known her. "You don't know me?" she asked, voice was trembling from excitement. Fate smiles upon her. If she's right, the scumbag has amnesia. Her lips parted in disbelief. "Henry, it's me." A doctor entered with nurses in tow, checking monitors, asking him questions. Henry frowned, struggling to sit up. Ethan stepped forward, arms crossed but expression unreadable. "Mr. Taylor," he said cautiously, "I'm Ethan Smith, your lawyer. You've been unconscious for 3 weeks after the accident." Henry's eyes fluttered closed, then opened again, dazed. Ethan gestured toward Ellie. "And this is Ellie Taylor, your wife." She almost gagged at the thought of suddenly using his surname in public. Henry stared at her, lips parted in surprise, but his eyes were clearly pleased. "You're my wife?" She gave him a nod and a fake smile. "Try not to strain your memory," the doctor said, stepping in. "You've suffered some retrograde amnesia. It's common after trauma like yours. Don't force anything. Memories may return gradually." Ellie forced a tear. She reached out, placing her hand over Henry's. "I'm right here, honey," she whispered sweetly. You're safe now, I promise. Inside, she was screaming, why didn't you just die? Ethan's eyes were locked on her like a hawk watching a snake. She knew he was silently testing her, waiting to see if her lies would hold under pressure. And now, so was Henry. Ellie sat at the edge of Henry's hospital bed, legs crossed, posture composed, but her insides twisted like cables under tension. Across from her, Henry stared at her, unblinking, curious, and probably suspicious. She gave him a carefully rehearsed smile, soft and warm like honey masking venom. We met at a business conference in Singapore, she began smoothly. You thought I was also a regular participant, but I was there presenting a cybersecurity model. Henry blinked slowly, eyes narrowing with interest. You approached me first, she continued, weaving the lie she'd practiced to perfection. You said something cocky, brains and beauty like yours shouldn't walk alone at networking events. He smiled faintly. You followed me around the whole week, she added, tried to steal my itinerary, said you were in love with my personality. Henry chuckled at that. Sounds like me. She nodded, yeah, charming, relentless, and annoyingly confident. His eyes stayed locked on hers, intense, hungry for a history he couldn't remember. This time, her voice softened. I liked your guts, but I didn't trust your reputation. Still, you kept showing up using every lame excuse to see me. I thought you were playing me. Still no interruption. She felt like she was being studied under a microscope. Then, without warning, he reached for her. Before she could react, Henry grabbed her wrist and pulled her in, his lips crashing into hers. Her body stiffened. Her instinct screamed to shove him off and slap him hard. But out of the corner of her eye, she caught Ethan watching them with curiosity and amazement. She reminded herself, you're pretending to be his wife. You should convince Henry and everyone in his circle. You must win. So she closed her eyes, let her lips soften. She kissed him back just enough to make it convincing. When Henry finally pulled away, there was a spark in his eyes. Not just passion but also certainty. I may not remember everything, he said softly, but I can see it, and feel it. You are really my beloved wife. Ellie smiled on the outside, but inside, she was screaming, and I might really kill you, honey, just not yet. Hell, as it turned out, came with designer bedding and a steady heartbeat monitor. Henry woke up yesterday, and since then, he'd become her curse wrapped in charm and seduction. Hottie, I'm hungry, he called sweetly from the hospital bed. She flinched. There it was again. Hottie. The endearment he'd been casually throwing around since he woke up, as if it were a cute, sweet, and harmless pet name. Like he hadn't spent years calling her ugly pig loud enough for the entire school to hear. How convenient, losing his memory gave him a free pass. A clean slate. But she remembered everything, every insult, every laugh, every look. And no memory loss could undo the damage he etched into her mind, heart, and soul. Please don't call me that, she said as evenly as possible. Call me Ellie, or, honey, like you used to. He tilted his head and even pouted sexily. No, hottie fits you perfectly. Her stomach twisted, but she could feel the eyes on her, Ethan, some employees, even old friends of Henry dropping by under the guise of casual visits, all quietly observing her every move. The nurses adored her. The cameras in the room never blinked. The illusion of a devoted wife had to be airtight. So she swallowed her anger, masked her disgust, and smiled like she meant it. I'll call the nurse to feed you, she said flatly. No, I want you to feed me, he said, batting his lashes with fake innocence. You're my wife, right? Ellie forced a smile and picked up the spoon. She fed him slowly, resisting the urge to drive the utensil straight down his throat. With each bite, she imagined lacing his food with something slow, tasteless, and untraceable. Then came the next order. Hottie, I need to use the bathroom, he said softly. She pressed the call button. Within seconds, a nurse stepped in, but Henry's voice snapped through the room. Get out. Startled, the nurse turned on her heel and disappeared without a word. Henry looked at Ellie. His eyes twinkled with something darker. You're my wife, he said softly. You should see all sides of me, even the ugly ones. She arched a brow. You want me to wipe your ass too? He shrugged and grinned playfully. For better or worse, remember? She helped him into the bathroom, her grip firm enough to hurt, but he didn't flinch. Once the door shut, she stood there, arms folded, back turned. Every drop echoed like an insult. Every whiff was a personal attack. So this is marriage. Romance really is dead, she thought as she was forced to endure every awkward sound and every unpleasant smell. This is love, isn't it? He said from the toilet, chuckling. She wanted to scream and beat him up to a pulp but she couldn't. Not yet. Back in the room, she tucked him in and said, I'm heading out. Need a shower, fresh clothes, and a few essentials. I'll be back tomorrow. I don't want you going home, Henry said casually. Ellie blinked. What? You heard me, he repeated with a smug grin. You can't just leave your husband behind in a hospital. What if I get lonely? You're being ridiculous. I said I'll be back tomorrow, she muttered, barely resisting the urge to roll her eyes and push him away. Hottie, I want you here. With me. Always. He declared and looped his arms around her to keep her from leaving. That night, she had a black hole courier deliver a small suitcase. Inside were things, carefully chosen to look lovingly packed. Clothes, his and hers toothbrushes, a pear silk robe, a bottle of wine they'd supposedly loved sharing. She placed them around their marital hospital suite like they belonged. Henry was thrilled. You're really staying? Of course, she replied sweetly, while screaming in her head, you didn't give me a choice, you manipulative bastard. She shot a quiet, resentful glare toward the bodyguard stationed at the door, watching her every move. Tell me about us, he said, dragging her attention back to him. So she told him the same made-up stories, how they met in Singapore, got married in Iceland, spent their honeymoon in the Maldives, watched the stars together, and shared quiet mornings over black coffee. She watched his face as he tried to absorb every detail, eyes burning with hunger for a love story he couldn't remember and one that was never real. He started asking about her, simple, innocent things at first. Her favorite color, her favorite food, her favorite song, whether she preferred dogs or cats. Then it got more personal, her birthday, her dream, what made her laugh, the hobbies she kept to herself, the books she read, the movies she likes, and the little things that calmed her when the world got too loud. Ellie hated talking about herself. His questions felt like fingertips tugging at the seams of her mask, peeling it back bit by bit. But lying too much would only make the cracks show faster. So, she gave him something in between, half-truths wrapped in just enough warmth to keep suspicion at bay. Finally, he looked at her with that searching gaze and asked softly, what did I do that made you fall in love with me? You made me feel like I always mattered, she said gently, a soft smile tugging at her lips, even as her mind conjured the image of him pinning her in a hallway corner, back when she was just trying to survive the day unnoticed. You always put me on a pedestal, she added, voice warm, though the memory that surfaced was anything but him smirking as his friends dragged her onto a stage and dumped garbage over her while the crowd laughed and cheered. You were always beside me, the lie slipped out like silk. Her memory twisted to that awful day, his girlfriend barking orders to his minions, forcing her to drink from a filthy school toilet, and him just standing there. Even when I wanted to be alone, you were still there. This time, the memory was quiet but darker. She was alone at her parents' grave, broken and forgotten. He'd shown up with an envelope stuffed with money. No apology. No shame. Just hush money, like she could be bought off, like her grief had a price tag. As if money could erase the fact that his father had taken her parents' lives. Her heart was breaking, but still, she smiled. That's deep, hottie. Henry beamed, the kind of smile that reached his eyes and made her stomach twist. That's all I needed to hear, he said, voice full of quiet awe. You and me, we had something amazing. I must have been crazy about you. He let out a boyish laugh. She sighed, long and hard. Again, it's Ellie, not hottie. Ellie, hottie, same thing, he teased, reaching for her hand again. You're the most beautiful woman I've ever seen. Can't believe I ever let myself forget you. She didn't know whether to scream, laugh, or cry. In another life, maybe she'd be flattered, but right now, all she wanted was to fast forward to the part where she divorced him and walked away filthy rich. Yeah, divorce him, take half, and disappear. That was the new plan, since the scumbag clearly wasn't dying anytime soon. Henry was officially discharged and brought home like a returning king. Paparazzi flash outside the gates. Doctors are giving final checkups. Staff are scrambling to meet every ridiculous comfort. And through it all, Ellie smiled like the proud, devoted wife. Once the doors of the mansion closed, reality shifted, and so did the air. That night, the bedroom was dim, scented with cedarwood. Henry stood by the window, shirtless, bathed in soft lamplight. His reflection flickered on the glass, handsome, relaxed, dangerously content. His eyes were full of something she couldn't decide. She felt nervous and uneasy, so she turned and began scrolling through her phone. Suddenly, she felt him behind her, his arm sliding around her waist. "I've been thinking," he whispered, voice low and seductive. "Maybe it's time we start a family." She stiffened as his lips brushed her ear, then trailed down to her neck, his hands slowly roaming her sides like he was memorizing her shape. Her brain slammed on the brakes. "What?" "Let's have a baby, Ellie. I want us to have one. No, I want 7 children. Or more, if you want," he said, grinning against her skin. "I don't care if it's 7 boys or 7 girls. I want a full house. It'll be chaotic, but also lively and fun. Can you picture it?" She sneered inside her head. "Oh, I can picture it. It looks like a hostage situation. Unfortunately, I'm the hostage." She forced a soft laugh, gently slipping out of his grasp and walking toward the bed, pretending to fluff the pillows. "Henry, the doctor said you're still healing," she said lightly. "You're not supposed to engage in strenuous activities." He smirked and walked toward the bed. "The doctor's just exaggerating. I feel better and stronger." He grabbed her, and they both dropped onto the mattress. He pinned her down like a hungry predator drooling over his prey. "I know what my body needs. It's you, hottie." She quickly pushed him off and snapped, "What your body needs is rest." But he wasn't listening. Instead, he pulled her close again, pressing her head to his chest. "Can you hear that?" he whispered. "My heart says I love you." A jolt shot through her spine. Beads of sweat formed at the back of her neck. Her instinct screamed, but his voice kept pouring sugar over the moment. "Ellie, I want to grow old with you," he murmured. "I want you to be the first thing I see when I wake up, and the last when I fall asleep. I want to spend every day with you and our kids." Something twisted in her chest, fear and confusion. His eyes looked so sincere that, for a heartbeat, she hesitated. Could he actually mean it? Then his hand slipped beneath her shirt, fingers grazing her waist, lips brushing her shoulder, slowly working their way up to her neck. And just like that, the spell broke. "There it is," she thought bitterly. "For a second I thought he was serious. Turns out, he just wants to get into my pants." Inside her head, she was screaming, "Punch him, break his face, cut off his damn genitals, end this charade right now." But the staff, the guards, the cameras. She couldn't afford a single misstep, not when his fortune was almost within reach. With perfect timing, she shifted, guiding his arm under her head like a pillow. Then she intertwined their fingers, subtly trapping his wandering hand in place. To anyone watching, it looked tender and intimate, but to Ellie, it was pure strategy. "You've really planned it all out," she whispered, her voice soft and sweet like poisoned honey. Henry grinned, nuzzling into her hair. "Every detail. You, me, 7 kids, beach holidays, growing old together in a vineyard in Tuscany. It's going to be perfect." She stared at him and resisted the urge to roll her eyes. "Yeah, perfect." He kept talking about naming children they hadn't made, picking out paint colors for nurseries that would never exist, rambling about balancing parenthood and work like it was some dream life already in motion. It would have been sweet if it wasn't completely delusional. She nodded, smiled, and played along. What unnerved her wasn't just the nonsense, it was how genuine he sounded. How his eyes sparkled with every ridiculous plan. For a moment, a flicker of guilt passed through her chest. If he was faking, he deserved an award, and if he wasn't, then maybe she was the villain. He was glowing, lost in his own fantasy, until finally he yawned and fell quiet, his breathing deepening as he relaxed into sleep, and his hand stayed wrapped around hers like she was his anchor. Ellie stayed wide awake. She didn't move. Her heart beat a little too fast. Her mind calculating escape routes, backup plans, and every worst-case scenario she could imagine. She looked at his sleeping face and felt a chill run down her spine. This was spiraling fast. First he dodges death, now he wants babies. Fantastic. The ballroom shimmered with opulence, chandeliers dripping light like champagne, a soft orchestra playing in the background, and whispers clinking like ice in crystal flutes. Tonight was the night Henry Taylor was formally introducing his wife to high society. Ellie stood beside him, elegant, confident, and dazzling in a deep sapphire gown that hugged her figure perfectly. Her makeup was flawless, her smile sweet but unreadable. To the untrained eye, she was simply a woman in love. But beneath the surface, she was a calamity wrapped in silk. The ballroom buzzed with anticipation as Henry raised his glass. Everyone, thank you for coming. Tonight, I want to officially introduce the woman who stood by me at my worst and stayed at my side as I healed. My beloved wife, Ellie. As the applause erupted, her eyes scanned the crowd and landed on the 4 men in tailored suits, drinks in hand, standing near the edge of the ballroom floor. They are Aston, Connor, Luke, and Levi. Also known as Henry's inner circle or more like minions, especially in the past. The same boys who helped Henry corner her in school hallways, laughed as they took and destroyed her things, and chanted cruel nicknames in front of her or behind her back. And just like Henry, they were older now, polished and powerful looking, but she'd recognize those faces anywhere. Tonight, they looked just as stunned to see her. Her stomach twisted as these men approached them. She felt uneasy but didn't show it on the surface. Damn, Henry, you lucky bastard. How the hell did you manage to trick this goddess into marrying your ugly ass, huh? And you didn't even invite us to the wedding? Aston teased, grinning as he gave Henry a hard slap on the back. Henry smirked. You know me, I'm decisive. I wasn't about to let a good thing slip away, so I married her right then and there. Ellie felt a flicker of relief at his answer, only for tension to knot in her stomach again. Your wife's insanely gorgeous, Connor said, narrowing his eyes as he studied her, but have we met her before? Luke squinted, tilting his head. Yeah, she looks familiar, like I've seen her somewhere. Any second now, they might recognize her. Silently, her fingers brushed the cold metal hidden against her inner thigh. If they recognized who she truly was, she was prepared to eliminate Henry and his 4 men right where they stood. Nah, Levi said, waving a hand. We'd remember a face and a body like hers. There's no way we've met her before. Henry's expression darkened. He pulled Ellie closer and shot them all a warning glare. I know how you guys think. Don't even look at my wife like that. The men burst out laughing, shaking their heads at his possessiveness. In the end, they toasted him, raising their glasses in celebration. They're completely oblivious to the danger standing in their midst. Ellie's smile didn't waver, but her eyes turned colder. Of course, you wouldn't remember the girl you bullied, even the ugly mess you left behind. Her smile sharpened, though none of them noticed. Not even Henry, who happily and proudly squeezed her hand, unaware of the danger behind her calm facade. And then, the storm began. Ellie secretly invited them. All of them. Every ex. Every fling. Every woman Henry had once discarded like a seasonal accessory. They arrived in stilettos and vengeance, faces tight with jealousy and bitterness. Some sipped champagne like it was poison. Others didn't bother hiding their glares. The room was starting to hum with unspoken tension. Then one voice rose above the music and murmurs. Incredible move, Henry, marrying someone else while I was gone. A beautiful woman in a scarlet dress stepped into the light. All conversation stopped at the sound of her voice and the weight of her accusation. Henry blinked. I'm sorry, do I know you? Ingrid Voss, she said evenly. Your fiancé, the real one. Henry froze. He looked like someone had knocked the air out of him. Gasps flitted across the room like startled birds. Cameras flashed. Whispers exploded. I left for barely 3 months, Ingrid snapped. I went to Germany to finish my doctorate. We were going to marry when I returned. That was the plan. You said you'd wait for me. Ellie turned slowly toward him, expression carefully composed with just the right shade of devastation. You were engaged? You told me there was no one else. Her voice trembled, loud enough for nearby ears to hear. Henry turned pale. I don't remember her, he admitted, genuine confusion in his voice. Ellie, I swear, I don't remember anything like that, he said again, weaker this time. Ingrid retorted. You didn't remember? You forgot me completely, but managed to find time to marry her? Ellie lowered her gaze, lips pressed tight in feigned composure, while the whispers in the room turned to sharp-edged murmurs. Phones were already out. Someone was live-streaming. Henry stood paralyzed between 2 women, his beloved wife and a furious fiancé from the past. Ingrid's voice cut through the silence like a blade. I didn't come here just to be brushed off. She pulled out a sleek folder from her clutch and opened it, revealing photos, him and her together, candlelit dinners, vacations, and anniversary celebrations. One showed Henry kissing her cheek, grinning in the very suit he'd worn just before the crash. I took these just weeks before I left for Germany. We video called every night. Here, want to hear your sweet nothings? She pressed play on her phone. His voice filled the air, warm and romantic. When you come home, we'll start our forever, baby. I love you. The room held its breath. Henry's jaw dropped. I don't remember saying any of that. You don't remember anything, Ingrid snapped, but that doesn't mean it didn't happen. Ellie's gaze flicked to Henry and then coolly to Ingrid. Calm, deliberate, she reached into her purse and retrieved a small USB stick. A staff member handed her a laptop. Since we're comparing notes, let me present my own, Ellie said with a tight smile. She pulled up footage of her and Henry, a charity event, an art exhibit, and one from a private yacht timestamped to overlap with the ones Ingrid just shared. The crowd erupted, especially Henry's exes and former flings, who came forward flaunting photos, videos, and steamy messages he had sent them. Some were timestamped so closely, it was clear he'd been juggling them all at once. The tension in the air snapped like a wire. Whispers exploded. Flashes from paparazzi cameras fired like lightning. I think this was taken while he was supposedly calling you from our hotel room, Ellie said, her voice a perfect cocktail of sweet revenge and great disappointment. You son of a bitch. Ingrid snarled and hurled a small white envelope toward Henry. It landed at his feet. You want proof you left me behind? There's your legacy. Henry bent down to pick up the envelope, his hands trembling as he opened it. His face drained of color the moment he saw what it was, a pregnancy report. I'm pregnant, Ingrid declared, voice rising with grief and fury, and I wouldn't raise a child with a man who forgets his promises the second he finds someone better. She stormed up to Henry, delivered a resounding slap across his face, and marched out without a word. Ellie looked at Henry, disgust curling her lips. Several women at the same time, huh? Henry shook his head, gripping her arms in desperation. Ellie, no, I swear, I didn't know. Another slap cracked through the air, louder than the applause moments earlier. The crowd fell silent. Cameras kept rolling. Everyone froze, caught between scandal and spectacle. I want a divorce, Ellie said coldly, then turned on her heel and walked away like a queen. Henry remained frozen, surrounded by chaos, clutching the supposed evidence in trembling hands. His chest tightened, breathing grew harder. His wife was leaving him, all because of sins he couldn't even remember. The air was thick with tension and dusted with echoes of the chaos she'd left behind. The ballroom was in shambles, paparazzi flashes, shocked gasps, scandal boiling like wildfire. Far from the noise, deep within a secured VIP suite soundproofed for high-profile guests, Ingrid leaned against the wall. One hand rested on her abdomen, her breath unsteady, shoulders trembling slightly from the adrenaline. Ellie emerged from the shadows, graceful as ever in her seductive gown, her smile the kind that could ruin reputations. Job well done, Ellie said excitedly. The trembling hands, the broken voice, the dramatic envelope toss? That was amazing. Ingrid exhaled sharply, the performance finally dropping from her face. She stood straighter, her eyes clear and calm now. The pregnancy line might have been too much. Ellie shrugged with a satisfied smirk. No, it's perfect. The media will eat it up. And Henry? He looked like someone had yanked the floor out from under him. Ingrid snorted, exactly what he deserves. Ellie's voice softened as she took a step closer. You okay? This time Ingrid touched her stomach gently. We're good. Switzerland agrees with us. Homer's busy turning our guest wing into a nursery. Ellie's expression softened. I'm happy for you. We're grateful you let us retire quietly, but I won't lie, I was thrilled when you called me back for one last show. Henry Taylor's golden image just shattered in front of the entire world, Ellie said, voice velvet and razor sharp. And the irony? It wasn't true, but everyone believes it. Ingrid snorted, he'll recover eventually. For a moment, silence. Ingrid nodded toward the sealed door. So what now, back to playing the perfect wife? Hell no, Ellie scoffed. I'm done. I've earned my way out. Ingrid's gaze warmed with respect. You're terrifying. Ellie smirked. I learned from the best. With one final look, Ingrid headed toward the private exit. See you in the shadows. And then she was gone. Ellie adjusted her gown, checked the pistol holstered at her thigh, then stepped back into the light, flawless, composed, and dangerous as hell. The villa was unnervingly silent. Outside, headlines still screamed, the scandal still boiling, yet within Henry's private estate, it felt as though the storm had hit pause. Ellie's heels struck the marble floors with purpose as she marched toward the main doors. She didn't need to pack much. Most of her belongings had been staged, props in a performance never meant to last. Behind her, heavy footsteps followed fast. "Ellie, please, talk to me." She ignored him and continued packing. "Ellie, just tell me what I need to do to make things right." That made her pause. Slowly, she turned around, jaw tight. "You really want to fix this?" He nodded immediately, desperate. "Then give me a divorce and the compensation I deserve." Silence fell. Henry's face froze. The color drained from it. He took a step closer, his voice gentle. "I'll give you the compensation." Her brow arched. "And the divorce?" He answered without hesitation. "Absolutely not." She glared at him and marched for the door, but this time, 10 guards appeared, silently blocking her path. She stopped cold. Her fingers tightened on the handle of her luggage. Slowly, she turned around. "Henry, get them out of my way." His reply was more determined than she expected. "No." Her eyes narrowed, voice low. "Excuse me?" He stood his ground. "I'm not letting you go." The air pulsed with tension. "I don't believe Ingrid, her story, her pregnancy, or any of those women. It doesn't sit right with me. None of it feels real. But you. You're real to me," he went on. "You can hate me or hit me, scream, destroy everything here, but I'm not letting you walk out," he murmured. "Ellie, you're my wife. I know it in my bones. I love you and I won't lose you." Ellie scoffed. "You don't even remember many things in the past. What makes you think you truly love me?" "I don't need memories to know this is real," he said softly. "Because you're right here." He touched his chest, over his heart. She stared at him, stunned by the depth in his eyes and the conviction in his voice. Her chest tightened. If only the past hadn't happened, maybe, just maybe, she could believe him. She asked bitterly, "And if I still want out?" His eyes darkened. "Then I'll fight with everything I have." The guards didn't move, the doors stayed shut, and for a moment, Ellie seriously considered taking out Henry and every last one of them. It would have been easy but reckless. That kind of mess would drag her and possibly her covert agency into unwanted trouble. Besides, she wasn't about to walk away from Henry's fortune. Not after everything she'd already invested, time, effort, and far too many resources. Her voice was low, resigned, already calculating a new way to make Henry file the divorce himself. "Fine, but don't expect me to play house." Henry nodded once. "I'll take what I can get, for now." The days that followed were blissfully cold. Ellie had kicked Henry out of the master bedroom without ceremony, slamming the door behind him. No warmth, no explanations, no room for debate. He had quietly retreated to the guest room. For 3 days, he stayed out of her way. And for 3 days, peace returned to Ellie's world. She spent most of her time hunched over her laptop in the private study, her face aglow in blue light, fingers dancing over the keyboard as she issued encrypted commands to her agents. Surveillance footage, identity wipes, extraction plans. There was a procedure for everything. Suddenly, the door burst open. She looked up calmly. Henry strides in, no guards, no hesitation, just a single folder clutched in his hand. "Don't you knock?" she snapped. He ignored the sarcasm in her tone. "I've been thinking about what you said. About proving myself." She narrowed her eyes but didn't speak. He stepped closer and held out a folder. "I want a chance to make things right, and this is the proof of my sincerity." Still silent, she opened the folder. Her eyes scanned the contents. Her breath caught. "It contains a full transfer of assets. Everything. His stocks, properties, and holdings, down to his car collection and offshore accounts. All in her name." She blinked. "This is real?" Henry gave a small, tired smile. "You said you wanted compensation. I figure, maybe this is the only way you'll ever believe me." Ellie stared at him, stunned, but then quickly masked it with a smirk. "You're insane." "Maybe," he replied, backing away slowly, "but I'm sincere. I'm trying. I want to fix our marriage." She glanced down again, every line of legal jargon confirming it was real. This wasn't a bluff. This was the jackpot, and she didn't hesitate. She signed it elegantly, confidently, with a flourish. Henry gave a silent nod, took the signed document, and left the room without a word. That night, he returned with a finalized copy in hand. The moment the door clicked shut, Ellie grinned. She immediately switched tabs, pinged her most trusted operative, and began initiating Phase 3, escape protocols, clean departure, asset consolidation. By midnight, she would be out, and Henry Taylor would wake up a broken, bankrupt man, or so she thought. 2 days. That's how long her freedom lasted. Ellie sat in a sleek penthouse in Lisbon, the sun spilling through floor-to-ceiling windows, her laptop glowing with secured portals and international accounts. She had followed the extraction plan to perfection, wiped her trail, used 3 burner phones, and had agents set up backup identities. By now, Henry should have been sobbing into silk sheets and wondering how he lost everything. Except, none of the assets were moving. The accounts remained locked. The properties stayed frozen. Even the offshore balances were tethered to one clause after another. No matter how many encrypted channels she used, no matter how skilled her financial ghost agents were, nothing transferred. She refreshed the final page of the digital contract again. And that's when she saw it. A footnote. Not at the bottom of the front page, but the back. The text was so small it was practically invisible unless you specifically looked for it. Ellie blinked and zoomed in. Her stomach dropped as she read. The aforementioned transfer of ownership grants the recipient full access to usage and management of assets, but with strict limitations. Said recipient may not sell, liquidate, gift, or permanently transfer assets to any party other than Henry Taylor or any legitimate child produced from this legal union. In the event of divorce, fraud, or absence of more than 7 consecutive days without prior written consent, all assets will be automatically revoked and returned to Henry Taylor. Furthermore, the recipient shall owe a penalty of 3 times the asset value in damages. Ellie's heart pounded. No. She stared at the screen in horror. This wasn't just a safety clause. It was a trap. She had signed it, smiling, believing she won. But Henry, the bastard, had outplayed her. Not only did she fail to steal his fortune, if she stayed away any longer, she'd be the one paying him triple. Her phone buzzed. One message from an unknown number. No reply allowed. Come back, hottie. Your dear husband miss you so much. Love, Henry. She stared at the message. Her jaw clenched, her stomach twisted. That smug bastard had never lost control. He had just waited for her to hang herself with the rope he gave her. Ellie closed her laptop slowly, her mind racing. There was no running now. She must face him head-on. Ellie pulled up to the villa in a sleek black car, fully prepared for tension, screaming matches, maybe even a bloody showdown. She'd stationed her backup in strategic hiding spots, ready in case things turned ugly. But what greeted her were media crews and cameras flashing, rolling, poised to capture her every move. Of course, leave it to Henry to swap bullets for a publicity stunt, she sneered inwardly. Flashbulbs exploded before she even stepped out of the car. Reporters swarmed the front drive. A red carpet, velvet ropes, floral arrangements. What the hell? Before she could react, Henry appeared at the top of the grand steps, dashing in a tailored navy suit, grinning like he'd just won a Nobel Prize and the lottery at the same time. And then he said it, loud enough for every mic, every lens, every gossip outlet to pick up. Welcome home, Ellie. Her spine stiffened. 2 security men guided her forward. She swallowed the scream rising in her throat and forced herself to smile. When she reached him, Henry took her hand, kissed her knuckles in front of the crowd, then drew her close like they were truly madly in love. I missed you so much, he whispered into her ear, and before she could snap back, he added, hottie, smile for the cameras. She glared at him, the smile tightening. Inside, she was plotting his slow, excruciating demise. The media went wild. The crowd cheered. Flashbulbs flared like fireworks. Henry pulled her in front of a microphone, waving to the press with his usual charm. He said proudly, I'm happy to announce that my wife and I are reunited and stronger than ever. There's no truth to the rumors. We were never separated. She just needed a short break. Ellie's jaw clenched. He brushed a strand of hair behind her ear and declared with a cheeky grin. "We're hoping to expand our family this year and start working on a little heir. What do you say, Mrs. Taylor?" He looked at her with wide, innocent eyes like he'd just declared he wanted to buy her roses, not trap her in a gilded cage. She shot him a glare, then leaned into the mic with a dazzling smile. "Yes, we're very excited." Turning to him, she hissed under her breath, "You're a dead man." Henry's smile widened, dazzling the cameras. "That's my wife." The villa was silent. The cameras were gone, but Ellie was still seething. Henry had once again turned her life into a performance. Now, they were alone in the grand bedroom, the same bedroom she once kicked him out of. They lay side by side under the softest sheets. He had dismissed the guards and the maids, insisting they needed privacy. Ellie could feel it, the weight of his gaze, the simmering desire he tried to mask with gentle touches and casual talk. His fingers brushed her arm. She didn't flinch, but she didn't move closer either. "Ellie," he said, voice low and warm, "I've missed this. Being this close." His hand hovered, then slid down to trace her hip. "I want you so bad." She turned to him, eyes unreadable in the dim light. "Don't push it." He blinked, surprised by her sharpness. She pulled the blanket tighter around her body. "We'll wait. You still don't remember anything." He frowned. "What if I never do?" She paused, then flashed him a smug smile. "Not my problem." Henry stared at her, as if trying to solve a puzzle he hadn't realized he'd created. "I feel something when I'm near you," he said softly. Ellie looked up at the ceiling, her voice distant. "You mean lust?" "No, why would you think that?" he said quickly. "It's more than that. Ellie, it's love. A connection. That has to mean something." She let out a soft, bitter laugh. "Maybe it's guilt. Or maybe you're just projecting." He reached out again, slower this time, hand resting on her waist. "Hottie. I don't want to wait. I want to show you how much I—" She caught his hand, firm but not cruel, and gently placed it back on his side of the bed. She murmured, "Henry, if your memories return, you'll probably be vomiting just from the thought of being near me." "Ellie." He had more to say, but she cut him off. "Go to sleep, Henry." She turned away, her back to him, eyes burning red. She hadn't come here for love or apologies. No matter how tender his voice or how sincere his eyes seemed, he was still the same man who once shattered her without a second thought. The only difference now? He didn't remember doing it. "I want everything on her," Henry had ordered the investigator. "Whatever she's hiding, I want it uncovered, all of it." But after weeks, the report was as thin as air. Every attempt to unearth Ellie's past led him into a void, so clean, so precise, it didn't feel natural. No family, no school records, no photos, videos, or social media presence. Nothing before their supposed first meeting. Only the story she'd given him, a love story packaged so beautifully, he wanted to believe it. Every trail ended in smoke. It was as if Ellie Wilson didn't exist until she became his wife. He was losing his mind. That night, he sat alone in the darkened study room, glass of whiskey in hand, staring into the darkness. Her words echoed in his mind, no intimacy until his memories returned. Until then, he'd have to wait. But he wanted her so bad, not just physically, but completely. Yet there was a distance in her eyes, a chill in her words. She was beside him, but never truly with him. At one point, he'd actually considered forcing it, thinking that if she got pregnant, she'd have no choice but to stay. Maybe a child could bind her to him in ways memory never could, but the second the thought crossed his mind, guilt hit him hard. He wanted her love, not her hate or disgust. He just didn't know how to earn it. Meanwhile, miles away under a cloak of darkness, Ellie moved through the shadows like she always had. The mission was to intercept a courier smuggling contraband. It was supposed to be easy. Instead, it turned into a trap. Too late, she noticed the scent in the air. Her vision blurred. She felt overwhelmingly thirsty. Her heart quickened. But worst of all, her body burned with heat. She realized it was an aphrodisiac, but not a common one, probably still in an experimental stage, yet undeniably fast-acting, highly effective, and cruel. She hurriedly and efficiently slaughtered the ambushers before she succumbed to the unnatural feeling spreading through her body. She considered going to one of the agency's headquarters, but none were near her location. She thought of going to a hospital, but how was she going to explain her bloodied state? Besides, she had a feeling the nearest hospital didn't have the antidote for this experimental drug. She didn't exactly know why she chose to go back to the villa with her body already betraying her. "I can handle this," she muttered while injecting detox medicines one after another. When all her detox kits failed, she turned to an ice-cold bath to control the heat climbing beneath her skin, along with the uncontrollable thirst and hunger gnawing at her. Everything seemed useless until the door opened. Henry froze at the sight of her submerged in the bathtub, cold water swirling around her, ice still floating on the surface. She looked flushed and was shaking. "Ellie, are you okay?" He stepped forward and held her shoulder. She looked up, and that's when it hit her full force. Her eyes were blown wide, feral. Her breath caught. Her pupils dilated. And suddenly, every inch of her screamed for him. His beautiful eyes, his sensuous lips, his sexy jaw. The way his shirt clung to his chest, even the scent of his body. Everything was too much. Too tempting. It was as if an animalistic part of her had awakened. She pushed him, panting. Don't come any closer." Henry stepped forward again. "Ellie, what's wrong?" Her nails dug into her palm. "Stay away." He froze. Her gaze swept over him like he was prey or salvation. "Get out." But he didn't move. He'd never seen her like this, broken, frantic, and cornered. "I'll take you to the hospital." "I said, get out," she screamed, her voice cracking with something between desperation and terror. "Ellie, let me help you," he pleaded. Suddenly, she grabbed his collar, yanking him forward. Their faces were inches apart, her breath was ragged. "Henry Taylor, I hate you so much. But since you insist, don't blame me for what comes next." She kissed him fiercely, and he responded with equal intensity. He gently swept her into his arms, carrying her to the bed as his lips explored hers with unrestrained desire. But just as his excitement peaked, she flipped their positions, straddled him, and swiftly cuffed his wrists to the headboard. "Ellie, what is this?" he demanded, rattling the restraints. His voice was tight with a mix of panic and arousal. "Take these off. I want to touch you. Let me hold you." "You're so noisy," she muttered. With a cruel little smirk, she stuffed a handkerchief into his mouth, muffling his protest. She leaned down, bit his earlobe, and whispered against it, "Remember this day, Henry. You didn't overpower me, it was I, Ellie Wilson, who overpowered you." Then she descended on him like a starving predator, finally claiming her feast. She took him completely and unapologetically. His muffled moans only fueled her fire. Her body moved with deliberate grace, teasing, tempting, taking what it desired. She owned every inch of him, and he knew it. He welcomed it. He matched her hunger with his own. He wanted to scream her name, to beg for the right to kiss her and touch her, but the handkerchief silenced his words, and the handcuffs bound every desperate urge. They were entangled until the first light of dawn. When it was over, and she was certain he had passed out from sheer pleasure and exhaustion, she quietly got dressed. With deliberate care, she unfastened the handcuffs and removed the handkerchief, making sure not to wake him. She gently repositioned his body on the bed, wiped the sweat from his face and body, and brushed the messy strands of hair off his forehead. Then she pulled the blanket over his bare form. A pained smile touched her lips as she looked at him, peaceful, unaware. Never in her darkest plans or wildest dreams had she imagined it would end like this. That she'd be the one to cross the line. That this fake marriage would be sealed in a moment caught somewhere between vengeance and vulnerability. She leaned down and whispered, "This is it. Goodbye, Henry." By the time Henry stirred, the sun was already halfway across the sky. He stretched with a lazy satisfaction, a faint smile forming as memories from last night flickered in his mind. He turned to her side of the bed, hand reaching out instinctively, already imagining how he'd tease her for last night. This time, he'd be the one to return the favor for binding his hands and silencing his words. But the space beside him was cold and empty. His smile faded. He sat up, scanning the room. No sound from the bathroom. No hint of her scent in the air. Then his gaze landed on something that made his chest tighten. Her wedding ring is resting on the bedside table. "Ellie?" he called out. No answer. He rose quickly, grabbing a robe and moving through the villa. "Ellie," he called again, louder this time, urgency now rising in his throat. "Where the hell are you?" Every room echoed with silence. Even the security guards looked confused when he stormed past them. "Where is she?" he demanded. They blinked. "Sir, no one left the villa through the front gate." "Then she probably used another way," he muttered and ran to the security room, shoving aside the tech man stationed there. He checked the footage. Nothing. The cameras glitched between 4:15 a.m. and 4:25 a.m. He froze. She had done this. She covered her tracks, he murmured. The realization settled in his bones like ice water. Ellie was gone. He stormed back to the bedroom, heart pounding, picked up the ring, staring at it like it had the answers he desperately craved. Who the hell was she? She'd made him believe every detail, every kiss, every touch. Every lie felt close to the truth and tasted so real. And now, she'd disappeared like smoke. Henry buried his face in his hands. He hadn't just lost her, he had never had her to begin with. But that didn't change the fact that he loved her and wanted her back. More than his pride, reputation, or the truth. He wasn't going to let her disappear. Henry Taylor stood before a high-security screen, deep inside a cold underground chamber, a place reserved only for those rich enough to break the rules of the world. The room reeked of sterile steel and silent power, a place he never imagined he'd need. But Ellie wasn't an ordinary woman. She was a beautiful dream wrapped in fire and ice, a phantom lover with poison beneath her kiss, a ghost he had touched and then lost. Now, he wasn't searching like a husband, he was hunting like a madman. A masked attendant motioned for him to enter his credentials. He did it, and the screen flickered to life, revealing another masked figure, voice scrambled by heavy encryption. "Name?" "Ellie," Henry answered, his jaw clenched. "She's my wife." "Start there." "Last name?" "Wilson. But search for Ellie Taylor too. She took my surname when we married." The man nodded and began scanning an encrypted network of private profiles, mercenaries, hackers, data forensics experts, and other contacts that didn't officially exist. "Do you have a photo?" Henry pulled out his phone and handed it over. It was a selfie they had taken at the hospital. It was the only photo he had left. She had erased everything else. The framed wedding picture in their bedroom was gone. The photo album had vanished. If he hadn't insisted on that one selfie, he wouldn't have a single image of her now. The man scanned the image. A beat passed. Then another. His fingers stilled. "This is highly unusual," the masked figure said at last. Henry's eyes narrowed. "Explain." "She's not in the system. Not as Ellie Wilson or Ellie Taylor. No records. No trace. She's a ghost trained to appear and disappear." Henry's voice dropped to ice, then dig deeper. "Break the rules. Hack every system. Burn the world if you have to. I don't care if it's illegal, just bring her back to me." That night, he returned to their bedroom. The bed was cold. Her wedding ring lay on the bedside table, as if mocking him. He picked it up, turning it over in his fingers. That's when he saw the inscription on the inside, words he hadn't noticed before. "The past cuts too deep." The pain never faded, and the scars remained. His eyes burned. "What kind of engraving is this?" he muttered. "This was supposed to be a romantic message. Damn it, Ellie, what were you trying to tell me?" His chest tightened. He reached for his wedding ring and searched the inside. Nothing. It was empty. He laughed bitterly. "This was supposed to be a symbol of our love, so why does it feel like you're declaring war?" The next 48 hours passed in a blur. Every possible exit was checked. Domestic and international agencies were quietly alerted. Facial recognition software scanned her face across millions of surveillance feeds. Both local and offshore bank accounts were flagged and monitored. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months, but Ellie was never found. It started with $10 million. "Return my wife safely," the message sent to every intelligence board, underworld syndicate, and mercenary network crawling the dark web. 1 week passed. No word, no trace. Henry raised the bounty to $50 million. A month later, $100 million. 3 months, $500 million. 6 months, $1 billion. And by the 1-year mark, whether driven by devotion or madness, he did the unthinkable. He raised the reward to $10 billion. He didn't care who brought her back. He didn't care how. All that mattered was that Ellie returned alive and unharmed. Governments took notice. So did cartels, private armies, and rival intelligence agencies. Mercenaries, bounty hunters, rogue agents, and even old allies turned wolves, all were drawn to the hunt. It was no longer a search, it was a global obsession. Some wanted the money, some wanted leverage, others just wanted a piece of Henry Taylor's obsession. Ellie had become a myth and treasure, but myths are never left in peace, and treasures are never left untouched. Nestled in the snow-covered folds of the Alps, a cabin sat hidden from the world. The cottage was warm, rustic, and safe. Or so she thought. Ellie stirred porridge as the fire crackled. A soft coo broke her rhythm. She turned. In the wooden cradle, a beautiful baby girl blinked up at her with wide, curious eyes. She smiled, scooping her daughter into her arms. "Good morning, little trouble," she whispered, pressing her lips to the baby's cheek. The baby giggled, unaware that the world wanted her mother captured and sold. Outside, in the snowy woods, a shadow moved. A lens glinted and a finger clicked a shutter. Then a message was sent. Possible visual confirmation, woman and infant. Sending to crossmatch. Standing by for bounty clearance. Back inside, Ellie's encrypted phone buzzed. One glance, and her stomach twisted. It was message from Black Hole HQ. Compromise suspected. Multiple teams mobilizing. 10 billion reward confirmed. Allies turning. Enemy eyes on you. She read it twice. Then a third time. Her blood ran cold. She clutched her daughter tightly. Her heart thundered. "Damn you, Henry," she hissed. "You've turned me into a walking currency." She knew what was coming. People would stop at nothing. Greed was just as lethal as revenge, maybe worse. Even old allies were sniffing around, lured by the scent of $10 billion. And now her daughter was at risk. No mission or training had ever prepared her for this. With fire burning behind her eyes, she kissed her baby's forehead and whispered a promise only the child would ever hear. Then she grabbed her go-bag from beneath the floorboards, swung open the trapdoor, and disappeared into the shadows. Henry's phone buzzed. He froze when he realized it was a message from Ellie. "I have a gift for you. Check the front door." He bolted down the hall, heart thundering, and yanked open the front door with a hope so sharp it almost hurt. No one's at the front door. Only silence and the wind brushing past him like a cruel joke. He clenched the doorknob, disappointment washing over him. He was about to close the door when he heard it. A soft bubbling coo. He frowned, stepped out, and looked down. There, nestled in a carrier, was a beautiful baby girl wrapped in layers of soft fabric. Her tiny fingers flexed as if waving hello. Her eyes were wide and curious, the same striking green as his. Taped to the front of the carrier was a folded note. His hand trembled as he pulled it off and read. "Henry, you piece of shit, you almost got both of us killed, me and our daughter. Yes, this baby is ours. You can do a DNA test if you don't believe me. I named her Violet. Just like my favorite color. I didn't use any of your baby name suggestions because, honestly, they were all ridiculous. I just need to finish something important. I'll explain everything when I return. Now, withdraw your damn reward. If you don't, you'll never see me again." Henry's throat tightened. His eyes softened as he looked at the child again. Violet blinked. A tiny yawn escaped her little mouth, followed by a small, warm smile. He fell to his knees, picked her up, and whispered, "Violet, I'm your dad." For the first time since she left, he felt happy again. Ethan and the others stormed in minutes later, alarmed by his message. "Where is she?" Ethan demanded. Then he stopped, stunned by the sight. "Wait, is that?" Henry nodded, holding the baby protectively. Aston approached slowly. "Henry, I know what you're thinking, but don't be reckless." Connor agreed, "Yes, that baby could be bait." "You need to do a DNA test," Luke suggested firmly. "No, I don't need a test." Henry's voice cut clean through the room. He stood there, cradling the baby. His eyes never left her face. "This could be another setup, especially now that we remember who she really was, and why she hates us. You, in particular. She has every reason to." Levi's voice was low, trying to reason with him. "I said no," Henry snapped. Then, more gently, "Look at her. She's mine and Ellie's. I know it." He didn't need proof. There was no denying it. Her delicate features were a perfect blend of their striking looks. Ethan stepped closer, voice low. She lied before. She tried to scam you. She fooled all of us. What if this baby is just another trick? A distraction to slow you down. A decoy so you stop looking for her. Henry's eyes darkened. He didn't answer right away. He stared at Violet's tiny hand gripping his shirt. The words in Ellie's letter stung. He hadn't even known she was pregnant. He had missed so much. He wondered if she had endured a difficult pregnancy and labor. He closed his eyes before finally saying, "She could have disappeared forever, but she didn't. She left our daughter with me. That's not something a con artist would do." "Henry," they spoke all at once, their voices laced with doubt. "I'll take the risk," he said, his voice unwavering. "I trust her." Ethan shook his head. "You're letting your feelings cloud your judgment." "Maybe," Henry replied, glancing down at the child in his arms. "Or maybe, for the first time I see things clearly." He pressed a kiss to Violet's forehead and whispered, "I'll bring your mom home, no matter what it takes." Then he turned to Ethan, "Cancel the reward. Now." Ellie moved through the shadows, unseen, untraceable, and unbothered by sentiment. There was no room for it now. Not after the truth she uncovered shattered everything she once believed. She wasn't who she thought she was. The couple who raised her weren't her biological parents. They were loyal and skilled agents assigned to protect Acheron's true leaders, her real parents. The truth came like a dagger in the dark. Her biological parents had been murdered in cold blood when she was still a baby. The man behind it wasn't Henry's father, as she had once believed. It was someone far worse, Matthew Wilson, her biological uncle. The same man who had smiled with warmth and raised a glass at her parents' celebration and toasted their newborn daughter. Beneath that polished mask, he had already plotted their deaths. It was said that her father, the former head of Acheron, the deadliest Black Ops organization in existence, was betrayed and assassinated. In the aftermath, her mother vowed revenge and secretly entrusted baby Ellie to the most loyal agents. But before she could finish what she started, she too was killed. Left behind, the agents disappeared with the child, staging a fatal accident to convince the world they had died with the rightful successor of Acheron. To protect her, they buried her identity. They laced her food with drugs that altered her appearance, adding weight, darkening her skin, and triggering acne, masking the striking features that could reveal her bloodline. They raised her in secrecy and safety, but that peace didn't last. Eventually, their cover was blown, and Matthew had them eliminated. She only survived because Gabriel Reese, her mentor and trainer, found her first and hid her from the world for years. But the moment she resurfaced as Henry Taylor's wife, Matthew knew. He recognized her instantly. His niece. The one person who could take everything from him. She was a ticking time bomb. By blood and by skill, she was the rightful heir to Acheron. As long as she lived, his power was borrowed, his reign nearing its end. And now, he wanted her dead again. Ellie knew she couldn't run anymore. Hiding was no longer an option, not with a monster like him closing in. Today, he was coming for her. Tomorrow, it might be her daughter. Crouched in the shadows of a hidden bunker, she steadied her breath and assembled her weapon piece by piece. Her fingers moved with quiet precision, but her thoughts lingered on Violet. She had left her baby on Henry's doorstep because it was the only way. The safest place wasn't with her. Not now. Not when her uncle had activated every loyal agent and ally of Acheron to kill her on sight. Henry could protect their child. She trusted him now, not as a husband or a lover, but as Violet's father. And if she didn't return from this mission, just like her own mother never did, at least Violet would still have one parent left. But Ellie wasn't planning on dying. A weathered map of Acheron's hidden base lay open before her. In 2 days, she would infiltrate the fortress. She would confront the man who murdered her biological parents, the same man who ordered the deaths of the 2 other people who ever loved her. This time, he would die. And she would take back everything he stole. Her family's legacy. The reins to the world they once ruled from the shadows. Her freedom. And most of all, her daughter's future. Because only by reclaiming power could she guarantee Violet's safety, and only by destroying him could she finally be free. Ellie moved through the ruins of an old cathedral outside Prague, one of Acheron's outposts, long believed abandoned. Her informant told her this was the final checkpoint before her uncle's core base. The silence was too perfect. She knew the feeling. This was a setup. Still, she pressed forward. Her senses heightened. Each step is calculated. She passed the cracked wall, boots brushing against fractured stone sculpture and blood-stained carvings, symbols from Acheron's founding. Then she felt it, a presence. Too close and too familiar. Still impatient, a calm voice echoed behind her. I warned you that would get you killed one day. Ellie turned and froze. Standing there in a tailored coat and leather gloves was Gabriel, her former mentor, the man who saved her, protected her, and trained her in the shadows after her adoptive parents died. She used to trust him more than anyone. Gabriel, you're working for him? She whispered, pulse tightening. No, it's called an alliance. I told you, child, loyalty in our world is reserved for those with power, money, and influence. Your uncle had all three. But you had potential. He killed everyone I loved, she replied coldly. I know, Gabriel said quietly, because I helped him. The words sliced deeper than any blade. He reached slowly inside his coat, not for a gun, but for a small item. Your mother's ring, he said, tossing it gently to the ground. She begged me to protect you. And for a while, I did. Ellie didn't move. Rage and heartbreak swirled inside her like a storm. An order was issued to kill you on sight. The bounty on your head is higher than the offer from that tailor boy, Gabriel continued, his gaze flat. But I wanted to see you and talk to you one last time. And now that you have? She asked, bracing for the worst. He smirked. Let's find out if all that training actually paid off. Meanwhile, back at the villa. Henry stood at the edge of the garden, cradling Violet in his arms. He hadn't slept last night. Her letter still haunted him. He still feared she wouldn't come back. Then his phone buzzed. An encrypted message from an unknown sender lit up the screen. Your wife's in Prague. She might not survive the night. If you want to see her alive, come and bring as many armed men as you can. Beneath it were precise coordinates and a grainy image of Ellie entering what looked like an abandoned building. His heart sank. Without hesitation, he handed Violet to the stunned nanny and dialed Ethan and the others, barking out a flurry of urgent instructions. Ellie fought Gabriel with everything she had. He moved with the grace of a ghost and the force of a bull. Blow after blow, they danced in circles, blood staining the stone floor beneath them. Her breathing was ragged and her muscles screaming, but her eyes burned with vengeance. In a final twist and sharp cry, her blade pressed into the skin of his throat, just below his jugular. Gabriel stilled. His lips curled into a smile, not of fear, but pride. At least my time training you wasn't wasted. Ellie didn't smile. Say your last words, Gabriel. He chuckled, even with the blade drawing blood. Do you want to know one more secret? Her grip faltered slightly. What secret? His grin widened, eyes glinting like a madman. I was the one who tampered with your fake husband's car. The word slapped her like a bullet. She blinked, stunned. Why? That single moment was all he needed. Gabriel drove an elbow into her ribs, followed by a swift wrist twist that disarmed her. A brutal knee kick to the gut sent her stumbling back. The knife clattered across the floor. Ellie gasped as he slammed her down, pinning her arms beneath his knees. This time, the cold press of steel met her forehead. Gabriel's eyes were manic. He was breathing heavily. Consider this answer my farewell gift, his voice lowered to a venomous growl. I did it because I saw the way you secretly looked at him even when you were just a teenager. He sneered. The same way your mother looked at your damned father. Ellie's eyes widened. Gabriel laughed. Your mother and I, we grew up together. She was mine first. But she chose him. Just like you chose that boy, Henry. His voice cracked, bitterness bleeding through every word. When your damned father was finally out of the way, I begged her to forget everything and give us a chance. I was even willing to accept you as my own. He paused, his eyes wild. But she refused, so I put a bullet in her head when she least expected it. He cocked the gun, a twisted smile forming, and now, I'll kill you the same way. His finger moved to the trigger. The shot rang through the hall. Gabriel's eyes blinked once in confusion, then rolled back. Blood trickled from the center of his forehead as his body tumbled sideways with a thud. Ellie lay still for a moment, her breath shallow. Then she turned to the corpse beside her. The fine wire she had rigged as a last resort trap had been triggered by Gabriel's movement, activating the hidden gun. She exhaled slowly, stood up, and wiped the sweat and blood from her face. Then she stared down at his lifeless body with cold finality. "Mentor, you forgot one of the basic rules in our line of work. Don't talk too much." She gave a low whistle. A soft mechanical click echoed from the shadows. Quietly, she retrieved her knife, checked Gabriel's gun, and decided to keep it. One by one, she disarmed the remaining traps she had set in advance. Then she poured gasoline around the area and tossed in a lighter. As flames consumed the old, abandoned structure, she vanished into the night. The moon hung high above the sky, its pale light casting long shadows across the vast castle that once served as the central base of Ellie's real family before Matthew seized it. Now, Ellie stood tall before her assembled agents and allies, the people she trusted, the ones who had remained loyal. Ingrid gave her a two-finger salute, eyes glinting with mischief and danger. "Took you long enough, boss." Beside her stood Homer, Ingrid's husband and a retired agent known for making enemies disappear without a trace. He offered a calm, almost serene smile, his arm casually draped around Ingrid's back. "Your uncle's moves are getting reckless," he said, as if commenting on the weather. Ellie nodded. She'd received the same intel from her other sources. Then Homer hesitated. I sent Henry a message. Just a short one." Ellie's gaze snapped to him like a whip. "You what?" "I thought he had a right to know. You were in danger. We could use all the help we can get." Her voice turned cold, sharp. "Henry isn't trained for this. Don't you realize he might be a liability instead of help?" Homer flinched, guilt flickering across his face. "I just thought." Her eyes narrowed. "So, where is he now?" "I sent him ahead. To deal with your uncle." Ellie's jaw clenched as fury surged beneath her skin. "Are you trying to get him killed?" Homer remained calm. "I thought you hated him. Didn't you want him dead? This way, at least he'll be useful before that happens." Ellie didn't argue. She grabbed her phone and dialed Henry's number. Once. No answer. Twice. Still nothing. "Damn it, Henry. Answer me," she yelled, her voice cracking with urgency. No connection. She hung up, eyes blazing. "If he's already in there," her voice trailed off, but everyone understood. "We move now." Without waiting, Ellie stormed out, determined, armed, and ready to face the enemy head-on. Meanwhile, inside the old castle, chaos reigned. Smoke curled through the shattered halls. Rubble littered the floor. Blood streaked the floor and stone walls. Corpses from enemies and comrades lay scattered like broken dolls. Gunfire long faded into silence. Henry stood in the heart of it all, weak, bloodied, yet unyielding. Out of desperation, he had recruited on short notice, tapping into secret channels, hidden networks, and dark connections, grasping at anything that could serve as backup. Now, his elite team was gone. His reinforcements were annihilated. And still, he stood proudly like a beast with nothing left but fury in his eyes. Across from him, Matthew was seething. His once pristine suit was soaked in blood, his face scratched and bruised. But the fire in his eyes burned hotter than ever. "You came in here thinking love could win you a war?" Matthew sneered, circling Henry like a vulture. "You really are dumber than I expected." Henry smirked. "Didn't I just eliminate most of your men? Sounds like you're the dumb one." "You arrogant piece of shit," Matthew snarled, slamming a punch across Henry's face. Henry staggered but stayed on his feet. "You killed my people," Matthew roared. "Men who survived wars, assassinations, coups. And yet you, a pampered bastard, managed to wipe most of them out." Henry spat blood, grinning through the pain. "You were going to use them to kill my wife. You think I'd just stand by?" Another blow. This time, a savage kick to the ribs. Henry dropped to his knees, gasping, the pain searing through him. Matthew paced like a rabid animal. "I should torture you. Kill you slowly, and painfully," he hissed. "But, I want her to watch." He turned to his remaining men. "Bind him, strip his comms, lock him in the chamber, she'll come for him." Then he glanced back at Henry, a cruel glint in his eye. "You gave me hell tonight, Mr. Fake Husband. But soon, she'll walk right into my trap." Ellie and her team crashed into the compound like a force of vengeance, her elite agents flanking her, moving with deadly precision. Gunfire erupted like a thunderstorm. The smell of gunpowder mixed with screams, blood, and smoke. "Push forward," Ellie commanded, her voice sharp. "We end this, now." Homer and Ingrid were already deep in the chaos. Other agents picked off enemies like ghosts in the dark. Their blades and bullets tore through the remnants of Matthew's men. Minutes later, only Matthew remained, dragging a barely conscious Henry with a gun pressed against his temple as he backed toward the helipad. "Don't move," Matthew roared, chest heaving, sweat pouring down his face. "One step closer and he dies." Ellie froze, her eyes locking onto Henry. He was barely standing, blood soaking his side, arms limp but his gaze still burned. "Let him go, or I'll make you suffer," she growled. Matthew's laugh was bitter. "You think you've won? I'll make you choose, your life, or his." He pressed the gun harder against Henry's head. Henry tried to shove him away but was too weak. His eyes met Ellie's. "Don't do it," he rasped. "Don't give him what he wants." Her fingers twitched on the trigger. Behind her, her team stood tense. One wrong move, and Matthew would end his life. Matthew sneered. "How sweet and noble, but completely useless. Here's the deal. Shoot yourself now. That's the only way he walks out alive." Ellie took a slow step forward. "What are you doing?" Homer shouted. "Ellie, no," Ingrid gasped. She ignored them. Her eyes never left Henry. Matthew mocked. "You'd really die for this man?" "Yes." She raised her gun and turned it on herself. Henry's eyes went wide. "No, Ellie, run. You have to live." Tears blurred his vision. She gave him a sad smile. "Close your eyes, honey. I don't want you to see it. Don't worry. It'll be over soon." "Ellie, no," Henry pleaded, desperation cracking his voice. "I want you to live well. Raise our baby girl. Let me die instead." Her lips curved faintly. "It's okay," she whispered. "I'll make it quick." Matthew grinned darkly. "That's more like it." "No," Henry cried, his voice cracking as tears and snot streamed freely down his face. Ellie's eyes softened. She mouthed, "Henry, no matter what happens, I love you." Then a single shot echoed. Henry screamed as the others stood frozen. Matthew's eyes widened in shock, the smirk freezing on his face as blood blossomed between his brows. His body went limp, collapsing like a puppet with its strings cut. He was dead before he hit the ground. Ellie lowered her gun, a smug grin tugging her lips. She rushed to Henry, kneeling beside him, brushing his hair from his forehead. "Honey, did you get scared?" she asked, voice low and wickedly sweet. Henry just stared, chest heaving. She leaned closer, a dangerous glint in her eye. "That's exactly how I'll kill you if I ever catch you cheating." Despite the pain, Henry released a ragged breath, part laughter, part disbelief. His vision blurred, but all he could see was her wild yet beautiful side. Ellie's fingers tightened around his hand as she called for help. Behind them, Matthew's reign was over, but their story was only beginning. Ellie stood by Henry's hospital bed, watching the steady rise and fall of his chest. She had personally ensured the best doctors oversaw his recovery. Only when she was certain he was out of danger did she allow herself to breathe again. But her fragile peace shattered the moment she returned to the villa. Smoke still curled into the air. The once beautiful estate was nothing but charred rubble. The scent of gunpowder, fire, and blood choked her. Bodies lay scattered outside, guards, servants, mercenaries, even police and soldiers, their uniforms marking their roles. Some had been gunned down, others cut by blades, and some burned beyond recognition. Her heart stopped. "No, no, Violet." Her scream tore through the air, raw and guttural, as panic consumed her. Memories of her daughter's smile and the tiny hand that once curled around her thumb flashed before her eyes. Now, the silence was unbearable. She tore through the debris, eyes wild, searching and praying. Then, a sudden rustle. Ellie spun around, gun raised, until she saw them, 5 trembling figures crouched low, clinging to one another. They were Ethan, Aston, Connor, Luke, and Levi. In the middle, bundled safely, was Violet, sleeping peacefully. Soot streaked their faces, mingled with tears and snot. Their fine clothes were torn and filthy. Ellie almost laughed when she noticed the dark wet stains on their trousers, proof these pampered men had faced true chaos and carnage for the first time. And yet, they'd chosen to huddle around the baby, shielding her with their own bodies. Ellie dropped to her knees, silent relief flooding through her as she gathered Violet into her arms. For the first time, she truly forgave everyone who had once bullied her. No words were needed. Henry woke to find Ellie beside him, their baby sleeping in the bassinet. "I thought I lost her," Ellie whispered. "My uncle's men attacked while we were gone. He was ruthless. He wasn't sparing anyone, not even Violet." Henry's jaw tightened. He took her hand. "Ellie, I'm sorry. If I'd known." "I know," she said gently. "I remember everything now," he murmured. "Why you treated me the way you did. Why you kept your distance. Can you forgive me?" She looked away, eyes glistening. "I already have." His fingers tilted her chin up until she met his gaze. "Ellie. I love you too." Her eyes widened. "Excuse me?" "You told me you loved me," he said, grinning through the bandage on his cheek. "When did I say that?" she asked, already wary. "Back when I was your uncle's hostage. Don't deny it." She narrowed her eyes. "You actually believed that? I was lying." Henry chuckled. "Nice try. I know you weren't. And even if you were, I'm telling you now. I'm not lying. So, will you marry me?" She blinked. "We already have a marriage certificate. Legally, we're married." "Not the same. Those documents were fake. You and your people planted them. They're still legally binding. No one knows the wedding never happened." "Well, I know. And I want a real wedding. A real memory, not something fabricated." "That sounds like a complication." "It's not a complication. It's our wedding." She groaned. "We're already married." "Technically, no," he said, clinging to the point like his life depended on it. "Technically, yes," she countered, massaging her temple. "Why do you think I wanted a divorce in the first place?" "You just wanted to take my fortune legally." She smirked. "At least you're not a total fool. I thought you'd lost your mind after that live, tearful love confession and apology on international television. What makes you think I still don't want your money?" He grinned widely. "Oh, I know you still want my money. But this time, you also love me, so much. And I'm also Violet's father. What if your enemies target me? You wouldn't want me to die, right? The only way to keep me safe is to stay with me. You have to marry me, hottie." He winked and even puckered his lips for a cutesy, over-the-top kiss, clearly trying to flirt and seduce her. She chuckled and rolled her eyes. "Since you're so desperate for this so-called real marriage registration and wedding ceremony, what are you suggesting? That we divorce in the morning and marry in the afternoon?" He smiled and she realized, to her horror, he was actually considering it. 1 month later. The wedding was nothing short of grand, held in the most luxurious, prestigious hotel in the city. The venue glittered with crystal chandeliers, and the guest list boasted prominent figures and swarms of reporters. Ellie walked the aisle in an intricate gown, every step graceful, though beneath the silk and lace, guns were strapped to her thighs, calves, and ankles. Around the perimeter, her agents blended into the crowd just in case. After all, she had offended more than a few dangerous and powerful people. At the altar, Henry stood beaming like a fool. When the officiant declared them husband and wife, Ellie leaned in and murmured, "Thank you for preparing all this. You even handled every detail." With her chaotic schedule and dangerous line of work, she had no time for planning something this elaborate. Henry smirked. "I had to. I was afraid you might forge the marriage documents again." She blinked, caught off guard. He shrugged. "I made sure everything's legally sealed, digitally encrypted, and internationally recognized. Ellie, you're not getting rid of me in this lifetime." Her eyes narrowed dangerously, but her voice dropped to a sultry whisper. "Enjoy this moment, Mr. Taylor. It's the only time I'll let you win so easily." He only grinned wider and pulled her into a kiss. In the distance, Violet babbled happily in Ingrid's arms. The ballroom erupted in applause, camera flashes popping like fireworks as guests showered them with cheers and well wishes. Glasses clinked, music swelled, and the air buzzed with celebration. After everything they had endured, their forever was finally sealed. This marks the end of Ellie and Henry's unforgettable journey. If this tale moved you, please like the video and subscribe so you won't miss more captivating stories yet to come.